The summons arrived wrapped in diplomatic etiquette, gilded with promises of peaceful restructuring and mutual cooperation. Captain Rhea Solis read the message twice, then once more aloud, letting each polished phrase echo through the Terran High Command briefing chamber. The Galactic Concord formally invites the Terran Dominion to a summit within the Elysian Rift, she recited, her voice steady. Matters of de-escalation and long-term stabilization will be discussed. General Hawthorne leaned forward, brows tightened. They want us disarmed before we finish our expansion to the Alios corridor. His voice carried a bitterness that usually stayed buried beneath layers of military discipline. Rhea slid the datapad across the table. It's not a negotiation. It's a verdict waiting to be stamped. Around the chamber, murmurs traveled between officers, quiet, anxious, restrained. They all knew the Concord's reputation, diplomacy backed by veiled intimidation, treaties designed to stifle growth, and a council that believed humanity was a dangerous anomaly in a civilized galaxy. Hawthorne crossed his arms. Intel confirms they've stationed 3 fleets in the Rift under the excuse of emergency patrol drills. Coordinates match known ambush patterns. Rhea studied the projection hovering above the table, a map of the Elysian Rift rendered in shifting blues and golds. Nebula storms swirled like painted brushstrokes. Asteroid clusters cast irregular shadows from drifting starlight. And hidden deep within those shadows, Concord warships waited. If we send one envoy ship, Rhea said, they'll surround it before the docking clamps finish cycling. Exactly, Hawthorne replied. They expect us to show humility. They expect us to fold. That word, expect, hung in the air like a spark waiting for ignition. Rhea broke the silence. Then let's give them something they do not expect. Cold light reflected off the window behind her, illuminating the soft contours of her uniform. She looked at the officers one by one. We attend the summit. But we don't go alone. Lieutenant Mara Ishan straightened. The Ars-class fleet. Rhea nodded. Every ship. Full formation. Several breaths caught at once. The Ars-class vessels represented the Terran Dominion's most guarded secret superdreadnoughts forged from graviton-compressed alloys, equipped with weapons that rendered traditional energy shields nearly obsolete. They were built quietly, away from Concord eyes, and tested only in the harshest stellar zones. You're proposing we arrive with a deterrent capable of dismantling half the rift, Hawthorne said, though no disapproval touched his voice. Only awe. I'm proposing, Rhea replied, that we refuse to present our necks while pretending to negotiate. The general leaned back. You'll be the commander? Yes. Then I'll authorize the deployment. Rhea inclined her head. Thank you, sir. Hawthorne dismissed the room, leaving only Rhea and Mara behind as the projection flickered into darkness. Mara exhaled slowly. They're going to call this aggression. They already decided we're aggressive, Rhea said. I'd rather be prepared than naive. Mara studied her expression. This isn't just strategy. You're angry. I'm tired, Rhea corrected. Tired of humanity being treated like a stray wildfire that must be extinguished before it spreads. The Concorde labels us a threat because we refuse to bow. They want us confined, manageable. And they think fear will guide us there. Mara said nothing for several moments. When she finally spoke, her voice carried the weight of shared frustration. If this goes poorly, the galaxy erupts. And if we do nothing, Rhea responded, we lose everything without firing a single shot. They left the chamber, walking through the command deck as technicians readied jump cores, calibrated navigation arrays, and finalized fleet alignments. Every screen flashed updates. Every officer moved with precision, urgency, and muted anticipation. Rhea stepped onto the bridge of the TDS Valkyrie, her flagship. The vessel hummed beneath her boots, an immense beast of dark titanium and pulsing reactors. Its corridors shone with cool white lights that danced across layered plating. The ship felt alive, coiled, ready to claim space with undeniable presence. Status, Rhea called. Helmsman Cade spun toward her. We're prepped for rift entry. Fleet synchronization at 92%. Final graviton swell charging now. Communications sealed, she asked. Sealed and cycling, Cade confirmed. No outbound transmissions. No signal leaks. Rhea settled into the command chair. It fit her posture perfectly, as though it had been waiting for her alone. Mara entered moments later and took her station. All dreadnoughts report ready. Heavy carriers in flank position. Stealth frigates on perimeter. A subtle vibration tremored through the Valkyrie's hull as the jump system drew power. She glanced toward the window. Earth's distant outline shimmered, bathed in soft atmospheric glow. Rhea let the sight linger for a heartbeat. You know, Mara said quietly, some say the Concorde fears us because we evolve too quickly. Every century we leap forward by a millennium. Fear is a strange fuel, Rhea replied. It either forces restraint, or it invites conflict. And today it brings clarity. A signal chimed across the bridge. Jump swell stabilized, Cade reported. All ships synced. Awaiting your command. Rhea touched the comm interface. Her voice carried into every vessel of the Ars fleet. This is Captain Solace. We are en route to the Elysian Rift for diplomatic proceedings. Intelligence predicts coercion. Our presence ensures equilibrium. She paused, allowing gravity to settle into her words. We demonstrate strength, not provocation. Our goal is peace, peace without submission. Maintain discipline. Hold formation. Respond only upon my signal. Across the comm channel, hundreds of officers answered in unified acknowledgement. Rhea lowered her hand. Initiate jump. Space folded. Light fractured into violet ribbons as gravity twisted around the fleet. The stars stretched into crystal lines. The bridge dimmed, stabilizers throbbed, and the Valkyrie surged into the rift. A heartbeat later, the nebula spread before them, an ocean of swirling amber clouds and jagged asteroid silhouettes. Electric arcs danced among dust storms, illuminating the rift with ghostly flashes. Sensors pinged immediately. Mara frowned. Multiple Concorde signatures. They're positioned in 3 layers around the summit coordinates, exactly as predicted. Rhea leaned forward. Do they see us yet? Not fully, Mara replied. The rift's particle density is masking our mass. They think we're a single envoy ship. Rhea allowed herself a small, precise smile. Not triumph, certainty. Hold cloak integrity, she ordered. Advance to rendezvous point. As the fleet glided deeper, gravitational waves rippled around them. The Ars dreadnoughts moved silent as shadows, their colossal frames ghosting through drifting debris. No broadcasts. No introductions. Not yet. The moment the Concorde realized what was approaching would mark the turning point of the century. Captain, Cade said suddenly, voice tight. Concorde long-range arrays detecting anomalous mass signatures. They're confused. Let them wonder, Rhea said. The Valkyrie slipped into position at the heart of her fleet. Rhea rose from her chair, gaze fixed on the stormlit vista. Prepare decloak sequence, she said softly. When they expect a lamb, we show them the wolf. The order moved through the fleet like a silent tremor. The trap was set, just not for humanity. The Elysian Rift unfolded like a fractured dream, bands of molten orange nebula drifting over jagged asteroid ridges, lightning veins crawling silently through dust storms. It was beautiful in the way a live minefield could be beautiful, unpredictable, lethal, and indifferent to anyone who entered. Captain Rhea Solace stood at the forward viewport as the Valkyrie advanced through glowing clouds. Titan-sized asteroids spun in slow arcs around them, halos of fragmented rock trailing behind each rotation. Beyond the drifting debris, faint silhouettes of Concorde warships lurked, nearly invisible to the naked eye, but unmistakable on long-range scans. Lieutenant Mara Ishan studied the tactical display. Their fleets are holding a static formation, she said. 3 rings. All facing the same center point. The summit station, Rhea replied. They built a stage before inviting us to play. On the outer ring, destroyers lined up in massive crescents. The middle ring bristled with cruisers. The innermost ring held carriers, heavily shielded, heavily armed, positioned as the final measure. An unmistakable cage disguised as a diplomatic escort. Any sign they're aware of our numbers? Rhea asked. Not yet, Mara said. Our mass emissions remain scattered by the rift's particle storms. Cade, the helmsman, added, their scanners keep refreshing. They know something's wrong, they just don't know what. Rhea took her seat, posture steady, hands relaxed. Maintain cloak. Advance at half thrust. Keep the dreadnoughts aligned. The fleet glided through the rift in perfect silence. Each Ars-class dreadnought moved with the calm inevitability of a drifting glacier, immense, unstoppable, built from materials no alien council had ever seen. Their black hulls cut through fog-like vapor trails, scattering glowing particles in their wake. Rhea watched as the nebula swirled away from their shields, marbling the space ahead with golden smoke. For a moment, the sight felt almost serene. But serenity was a thin veil stretched over danger. "Captain," Mara said, breaking the quiet. "Concord command vessels broadcasting an approach request. They think we're still a single envoy ship." Rhea smirked. "They want us to announce ourselves." Cade cleared his throat. "Should I respond?" "Not yet. Let them wait. Let them trust their assumptions." She walked toward the war table, where a holographic projection of the rift shimmered in pale blue. Her dreadnought fleet appeared as ghostly shapes hidden within a cloud of sensor noise. "How long until we reach the Shard Gate?" Rhea asked. 3 minutes, Cade replied. The Shard Gate was a crystalline station built into a fractured asteroid, used as an entry marker for diplomatic envoys. Concord Protocol required approaching ships to send identity signatures there. By now, they were impatiently waiting for the humans to follow their rules. Rhea traced a line along the projection. "Once we cross the gate, the Concord will demand a visual feed." "That'll be when they understand," Mara said quietly. "Exactly." The seconds ticked by. The nebula thinned, revealing the angular silhouette of the Shard Gate, an enormous crystalline arch carved into a split asteroid, glowing with pale violet energy flows. Concord insignias glimmered in the stone like trapped stars. Cade slowed the vessel. "Crossing perimeter." Rhea raised a hand. "Hold." She opened a comm channel. "Shard Gate Control, this is Captain Rhea Solis, Terran Dominion Envoy. We are here for the scheduled summit." Static crackled, followed by a clipped alien voice. "Envoy vessel, present identification signatures and prepare for escort." "Transmitting now," Rhea answered. A beat of silence. Another. Then. "Envoy vessel, your mass readings appear inconsistent. Clarify your structural configuration immediately." Rhea let the silence stretch for several seconds before replying, "Negative. All systems nominal." The bridge crew exchanged glances. Mara attempted to hide a smile. Concord officers scrambled behind the static. Voices overlapped, orders barked, alarms pinged faintly through the speakers. "They're losing composure," Mara noted. "They expected certainty," Rhea replied. "Uncertainty unsettles them." "Captain," Cade said, "Concord destroyers shifting alignment. They're repositioning for interception." "Of course they are," Rhea murmured. "They know something is here. They just can't see it." She lifted her hand, calm but firm. "Execute full decloak." The command swept through every ship in the fleet. For a moment, nothing happened. Then the nebula tore open. The Ars-class dreadnoughts emerged in staggering scale, black hulls gleaming under nebula lightning, red engine vents glowing like molten cores. Their surfaces caught the rift's golden haze, reflecting it in razor-sharp streaks across angled plating. One by one, colossal silhouettes solidified behind the Valkyrie. 20 dreadnoughts in perfect formation. Rows of heavy carriers and stealth frigates arrayed along the flanks. A fleet so vast that asteroids passing in their shadows were swallowed completely. Mara whispered, almost reverent, "They can't pretend not to see us now." Concord sensors flared across the display, error bursts, recalibrations, frantic course changes. Warships scattered like startled birds. Rhea opened a broad frequency channel. "Concord Command, this is Terran Dominion Fleet under my authority. We acknowledge the invitation to negotiate." The reply came quickly, strained. "Fleet. This is not standard diplomatic procedure. You requested attendance," Rhea said. "We attended." Several Concorde ships drifted backward, trying to widen distance between themselves and the massive human vessels. Mara pointed at the tactical screen. Their barrier fleet is forming a defensive shell. They thought they were containing us. Now they're shielding themselves. Expected, Rhea said. Fear changes posture. Another transmission arrived, this time from the summit flagship itself. The voice shook with carefully masked irritation. Terran fleet, your presence violates the established parameters of this summit. You were to arrive with a single envoy vessel. We found the parameters inadequate, Rhea said. Adjustments were made. A long pause followed. Then, proceed to the station. Maintain non-threatening posture. Rhea smiled faintly. We never threatened anyone. Cade muttered under his breath, yet everyone looks terrified. Terrified beings, Rhea said, tend to reconsider their plans. The human fleet advanced toward the central summit station, a massive spire rising from a cluster of interconnected platforms built into a hollowed asteroid. Its metallic towers glowed with cool white light, casting long shadows across drifting debris. Concorde escort ships scrambled to form a corridor for the dreadnoughts, but their attempts looked pitiful beside the sheer scale of the human fleet. The Valkyrie alone dwarfed half of them. As they approached, Mara turned to Rhea. They're realizing this isn't a negotiation with a subordinate species anymore. No, Rhea said. It's a negotiation with equals. Possibly superiors. The escort commander's voice cut in again, strained, brittle. Terran fleet, reduce speed. You are overwhelming our docking guidance systems. Rhea responded with a quiet composure that unsettled even the bridge crew. Understood. Reducing to safe velocity. They drifted toward the station, silent and undeniable. When they reached visual range, the Concorde transmissions ceased entirely. Mara looked up. Captain. I think they finally understand. Rhea stepped closer to the viewport as the Valkyrie's shadow washed over the summit platform. No, she said softly. They're just beginning to. The summit chamber was a tiered circle of polished obsidian, lit by a halo of suspended crystalline strands that glowed in shifting blues. The room carried a chill, one that had nothing to do with temperature. Captain Rhea Solis stepped forward with calm, deliberate strides, the diplomatic escort trailing a step behind her. Her presence alone disrupted the carefully orchestrated atmosphere. The Concorde delegation had prepared for a lone envoy, not the commander of the most formidable fleet humanity had ever fielded. High Chancellor Vorthkan sat at the elevated center seat, his posture rigid. His teal skin shimmered under the chamber lights, yet tension stiffened every line of his expression. Rows of delegates murmured behind him, their voices hushed but sharp. Captain Solis, Vorthkan said, voice clipped. Terran Dominion representatives were expected in minimal diplomatic configuration. Your arrival was excessive. Rhea met his stare without hesitation. Your fleets surrounding the rift were excessive. My arrival was proportional. The room fell silent. Even the crystalline strands above seemed to dim, reacting to the sudden drop in collective composure. Vorthkan exhaled slowly. We convened here to prevent escalation. Humanity's rapid military expansion destabilizes the region. The Concorde seeks balanced unity. Your dreadnoughts project defiance. Rhea took her place at the central podium. Strength is not defiance, Chancellor. Strength ensures negotiations occur in good faith. A ripple of discomfort traveled through the alien rows. Rhea watched them unflinchingly. Vorthkan folded his hands. Then let us begin with the proposals. Humanity must reduce its military footprint in the Alios corridor and relinquish development rights to contested systems. The Concorde will oversee resource distribution to prevent misuse. Rhea raised a brow. You're asking us to surrender economic and territorial autonomy. We're asking you to accept guidance, he corrected. Guidance enforced by fleets hiding behind nebula storms? Her tone remained even, each word carved with precision. A delegate rose from the left. His voice trembled despite the effort he put into masking it. Your species was labeled Deathworld Tier 5 for a reason. You adapt rapidly. You retaliate fiercely. We must prevent catastrophic outcomes before they occur. Rhea turned to face him. If fear guides your policy, you do not seek peace. You seek containment. The delegate lowered his gaze. Vorthkan leaned forward. Captain, humanity's aggression must be moderated. Chancellor, Rhea interrupted softly, humanity did not bring aggression here today. Vorthkan stiffened. Your fleet is a threat by its very existence. My fleet is outside, Rhea replied. Your fleets encircle this station with weapons primed. Yet you claim we arrived with hostility. Electric tension crackled through the chamber. The Chancellor's composure faltered for a fraction of a second, a tiny break, but impossible to miss. Then something shifted in the air. Mara's voice whispered through Rhea's earpiece. Captain, Concord warships on the inner ring have armed secondary batteries. Not active fire, but hot enough to register on thermal scans. Rhea didn't change expression. Our targeting systems fixed. Passive scans only, Mara replied. But positioning angles suggest preparation for more than intimidation. Vorthkan lifted his chin. Before we continue, Terran Commander, we require confirmation. Will you agree to a staged demilitarization schedule? Rhea spoke into the room but meant the reply for her bridge crew. Transmit internal readings to fleet-wide channels. Quietly. Then she answered the Chancellor. No. A whisper moved through the Concorde seats like a gust through dry leaves. Vorthkan narrowed his eyes. Non-compliance indicates hostility. If the Terran Dominion refuses moderation, the Concorde will be forced to. A sharp alarm cut through the chamber. Not loud. Not piercing. Just a brief, unmistakable alert from the summit's tactical pit, one meant only for staff and military officers. The delegates recognized it instantly, their expressions flaring with dread. Rhea did not move. Your ships just activated forward arrays. Vorthkan slammed a hand on his console. Security, cancel that order. Hold fire. But it was too late. Outside, a beam of concentrated energy ruptured from a cruiser's bow. It didn't strike a Terran vessel directly, it cut through empty space near the Dreadnought line, a warning shot designed to intimidate. Inside the chamber, panic rippled. Rhea remained motionless. A mistake, Chancellor? Vorthkan stared at her, realization creeping into his face like spreading frost. This was not authorized. Mara's voice came through Rhea's earpiece again. Captain, the Valkyrie's outer shield barely flickered. Their shot was negligible. Rhea gave one quiet command to her crew. Initiate silent targeting grid. Outside the station, all 20 Ars-class dreadnoughts shifted in perfect unison. Their weapon mounts angled as one, forming a symmetrical kill pattern. No power surge, no dramatic glow, just precise alignment. The Concorde fleets detected the movement instantly. Inside the summit, screens lit up with emergency alerts. One delegate stood abruptly. Chancellor, they've locked onto us. Vorthkan's skin paled. Impossible. Their systems should not, they cannot, override our defensive dampeners. Rhea answered for him. We didn't override anything. Your dampeners were designed to counter conventional energy systems. Ours evolved beyond those restrictions. Vorthkan swallowed hard. Captain Solace, your fleet is preparing to fire. No, Rhea replied. My fleet is preparing to defend itself. A tremor ran through the chamber. Even the crystal strands seemed to recoil. Rhea continued, her voice steady. The Terran Dominion has no intention of starting a war. But we will not be coerced, threatened, or positioned beneath anyone's authority. You invited us here to dictate our limits. Instead, you've discovered your own. A silence thick enough to choke on filled the room. Vorthkan's composure fractured completely. What are your demands? Equality, Rhea said. And honesty. Remove your fleets from the rift. Cease your territorial interference. And acknowledge that humanity governs itself. And if we refuse, he whispered. Rhea stepped closer, eyes level with his. Then your warning shot becomes the last harmless weapon you ever fire at us. Vorthkan looked away first. On the summit screens, the alien fleets faltered. Defensive formations crumbled. Warships drifted backward, terrified of the dreadnought grid now aimed directly at them. Finally, Vorthkan nodded once, slow, resigned. We will consider revised terms. Not consider, Rhea corrected. Accept. The chamber fell still. Delegates exchanged looks, fear, astonishment, disbelief. Rhea turned from the podium. Chancellor, negotiations continue when your fleets stand down. She walked toward the exit as alarms softened and voices drowned beneath her steady footsteps. Mara's voice reached her ear again. Captain, Concord ships are pulling away. They're disengaging targeting locks. Rhea allowed a breath she had held for too long. Good. Prepare for final terms. Understood. Behind her, the summit chamber murmured with shattered confidence. The Concord had expected intimidation to shape humanity. Instead, they had learned what happened when a Deathworlder fleet stood in the light, unflinching, unyielding, and undeniably sovereign. The summit chamber felt different when Captain Rhea Solis returned. The crystalline strands overhead dimmed to a softer glow, their reflections bending across the obsidian floor like hesitant ripples. Concord delegates no longer sat with rigid confidence, they watched her with wary attention, their earlier certainty replaced by quiet calculation and veiled fear. High Chancellor Vorthkan stood near the central podium, hands clasped behind his back. His posture tried to convey authority, but the tension in his jaw betrayed the strain of the past hour. Outside, the rift flickered with distant lightning, silent reminders of the power hovering just beyond the station walls. Rhea walked toward the podium with a measured calm. She didn't glance at the screens showing her fleet, she didn't need to. She felt their presence through every subspace tremor. The Valkyrie and its sister dreadnoughts maintained absolute discipline, silent, but ready to ignite the void if needed. Vorthkan exhaled slowly. Captain Solis, he began, the Concord acknowledges the sudden shift in circumstances. Rhea stopped a meter from him. A shift caused by your fleet's arming during a diplomatic session. The Chancellor's throat tightened. A malfunction triggered an unintended discharge. Convenient word, Rhea said. Especially when that malfunction coincided perfectly with demands for our disarmament. Whispers moved through the delegates. No one interrupted, no one tried to defend the Chancellor's earlier actions. Every representative in the room had witnessed the Dreadnought's silent lock-on. Every one of them had felt the pressure of being a single misstep away from annihilation. Vorthkan gestured stiffly toward the negotiation table. Let us finalize terms. Rhea stepped forward. Agreed. A holo display flared to life between them, lines of text unfolding over a rotating symbol of the Elysian Rift. These were the terms she had sent moments earlier, direct, precise, uncompromising. Clause 1, Rhea stated, the Concord formally recognizes full Terran sovereignty across all established and developing systems. Vorthkan's tendrils quivered. We acknowledge this clause. Clause 2, she continued, the Concord withdraws all military forces from the Alios Corridor, the Orion Bastion Arc, and all sectors marked under mutual navigation agreements. The Chancellor inhaled sharply. A withdrawal of that magnitude leaves several regions undefended. Your regions, Rhea cut in, are not our responsibility. You stationed fleets near our borders under the guise of patrol. That ends today. Silence stretched for several seconds as Vorthkan composed himself. Very well, he said quietly. Clause 2 accepted. Clause 3, Rhea said, the Concord ceases further interference with Terran research, expansion, or diplomatic dealings. No monitoring installations. No forced inspections. No imposed limitations. Vorthkan's composure cracked. You ask us to trust that humanity will not escalate its military presence beyond reason. Rhea's expression remained unreadable. Trust requires mutual respect. You cannot demand loyalty while pointing weapons at our people. The Chancellor's gaze drifted toward the screens showing the Dreadnought formation. His voice softened. Your fleet has already exceeded every assessment we had. Rhea spoke with steady conviction. Humanity grows because we refuse stagnation. We rise because we have faced extinction more than once. No one dictates how far we are allowed to climb. For a moment, Vorthkan simply observed her, searching her face for aggression, arrogance, or cruelty. Instead, he found resolve anchored by responsibility. He lowered his head. Clause 3 accepted. Rhea lifted the final page of the treaty. Her voice echoed through the chamber. In return, the Terran Dominion guarantees diplomatic channels remain open. We offer scientific cooperation where interests align, and neutrality where tensions arise. We seek peace, but not at the cost of our freedom. Vorthkan nodded. Those terms are acceptable. A signature prompt flickered on the holotable. Both representatives placed their hands over their consoles. A soft chime confirmed the pact, binding two powers to a future neither had expected when this summit began. The chamber exhaled as one. Yet Rhea wasn't finished. She stepped closer to the Chancellor. There's one more matter. The room tensed again. Rhea spoke quietly. If this summit had gone differently, if your fleets had fired in earnest, this entire station would now be debris. And humanity would not be the aggressor. You must understand that. The Chancellor swallowed. I understand far more than I did this morning. Rhea let the silence settle before adding, good. Let that understanding guide your decisions moving forward. She turned from the podium and began walking toward the exit. Delegates parted instinctively, creating a clear path. She felt their eyes follow her, some fearful, some astonished, others calculating a new political landscape. Her earpiece crackled. Mara's voice emerged with a rare note of relief. Captain, all Concord fleets are continuing withdrawal. They're increasing distance with every passing minute. Rhea stepped onto the lift leading back to her docking bay. Hold formation until the last carrier clears the rift. Understood, Mara replied. As the lift descended, the chamber faded from view. Rhea finally allowed a controlled breath long enough to steady her heartbeat, short enough to keep her focus sharp. There would be no celebration. Not yet. Victories won through restraint carried a weight that didn't allow for triumphal indulgence. When she reached the docking causeway, the airlock opened with a hiss. The corridor ahead glowed with polished whites and deep blues, reflecting the station's attempt at elegance. Yet for Rhea, the only comforting sight awaited at the far end, the Valkyrie, resting like a silent titan, hull dark and resolute. Cade greeted her as the hatch closed behind them. Captain, all systems steady. Our targeting grid is in standby. No signs of pursuit. Good, Rhea said. Maintain formation until every ship is accounted for. They made their way to the bridge. Officers stood straighter when Rhea entered, not out of ritual, but shared pride. They had faced an entire coalition and kept the galaxy from plunging into chaos. Mara turned from her console. Captain, Concord Command has transmitted their acknowledgement. The treaty is recorded and archived within their diplomatic core. Rhea took her seat. Prepare for departure. Cade entered coordinates. Jump paths plotted. The fleet awaits your word. Rhea looked through the viewport. The last Concord carriers were shrinking into the nebula's haze. The rift glowed around the departing vessels, a storm calmed by presence alone. Broadcast to all ships, she said. This is Captain Solace. The negotiations are concluded. Sovereignty secured. Prepare for return. A chorus of acknowledgements filled the bridge. Rhea rested her hands on the chair's arms, feeling the pulse of the engines through the metal. Engage jump, she ordered softly. The Valkyrie surged forward, and the Dreadnought fleet followed, carving luminous paths through the rift. Behind them, the Concorde watched in humbled silence, fully aware that the balance of the galaxy had shifted forever. Humanity was no longer a question mark. They were a power to be answered.